Welcome back, Focus Learners. We're jumping straight into today's explainer, and we've got an absolutely fascinating exploration ahead of us. We are looking at the mechanics of human reality. And no, I don't mean physical reality, but the mental reality that literally dictates every single aspect of your daily life. We're breaking down a deeply insightful text today that details how our internal perceptions construct the actual world we experience. I mean, if you've ever wondered why some people seem endlessly trapped in negative patterns while others continually break through, well, the source material we're examining today lays out the exact blueprint of how that happens. It's all about the self-fulfilling mind.
Okay, let's dive into this. Right out of the gate, the text hits us with a bold, foundational premise. The world is entirely in your mind, and you will become exactly the person that you think you are. It's a direct mirror. You will see what you want to see in this world. And the author isn't just using a metaphor here. They posit this as a literal, mechanical function of human psychology. Your thoughts aren't just, passing clouds. They are the architectural blueprints for the person you are actively becoming right at this very second.
Section 1. The lens of perception.
So here's the first gear in this whole mechanical loop that creates our reality. The source outlines that we view the world strictly through a very narrow lens of understanding. And because of this, you will unconsciously do everything possible to remain far, far away from what you don't value. You literally push it away. Now this applies to healthy things too. If you don't inherently value fitness, for example, your mind is going to automatically distance you from that gym bag sitting by the door because you are quite literally programmed to only interact with what you truly value. Now what's really interesting about this is how the author defines this underlying mechanism. They use the term soul, spelled S-O-L-E. Your soul is that inner foundation that you own. It's the very base layer upon which the entire external world reveals itself and responds to you. The text urges us to be highly aware of what our soul is made of. Because think about it, if your reality is just a response to this inner foundation, what materials have you been using to build it?
Section 2. Feeding the subconscious mind.
If our narratives write our reality, how do those narratives get written in the first place? Well, it comes down to your external subconscious inputs, what you follow, what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, and your role models. The source issues a massive warning here. Be incredibly careful with these 5 things. You might think you're just casually scrolling through your feed, but these elements, they are actively pouring the concrete for your inner foundation. So, the crucial point is that there is a direct, unbreakable chain of cause and effect at play here. Your daily media diet doesn't just casually influence you. No, it directly dictates the way you think, which drives the way you feel, which controls how you behave, and ultimately shapes the tangible choices you make out there in the real world.
Section 3. The victimhood trap.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when the whole system goes off the rails. Everyone faces a distinct crossroads. On one side, you have doing the real work for your betterment. On the exact opposite side, you have soaking in self-pity and staying right there in your comfort zone. People who actively avoid doing the real work will actually search out all possible evidence to justify not acting. They will talk themselves out of perfectly good decisions just to stay stagnant. And the grand irony of it all? People will put an exhausting amount of effort into staying in that comfort zone, which usually ends up being pretty painful anyway.
The text observes that these individuals engage in activities that predictably cause them to suffer, yet they completely reject responsibility for the consequences. It's wild. Instead, they place the absolute entirety of the blame on external factors. They complain that everything negative happened because of everyone else, completely ignoring their own role in the outcome.
Section 4. The destructive feedback loop. Let's move on and see how this builds, because this brings our mechanical loop full circle. When you reject personal responsibility, you lock your mind into a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it builds step by step like a trap. First, you reject the real work required to get better. Second, driven by that narrow perception lens we talked about, you actively search for evidence to justify not acting. Third, you soak in self-pity until you literally learn helplessness. And finally, step 4, you indulge in self-destructive behavior. It is a highly structured, self-inflicted psychological trap.
The result of staying in this loop is, frankly, grim. The author warns that people stuck here become entirely hopeless about any better possibility in life. They are choosing to be victims of their circumstances and absolute slaves to their emotions. It's a choice, even if, over time, it eventually becomes a completely unconscious one.
But hey, there is an antidote provided in the source material. Everything improves only if we improve ourselves and put in the real work. That is the fundamental truth the victim mindset rejects, but it's the literal only way out. If you continue with a self-destructive attitude long enough, it becomes so deeply ingrained in your psyche that you won't even be aware you were self-destructing anymore. It just seamlessly becomes your new reality.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway from today's explainer. The architecture of your perception is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Let's recap. Your inputs build your foundation dictates your choices, and those choices become your reality. So I want to leave you with this question to really chew on. If your reality is a feedback loop of your own design, what narrative are you practicing today? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep reflecting, and seriously, be careful what you build your foundation with.